I don't know what hurt more. The fact that they forgot my birthday again, or the fact that none of them even noticed they forgot it. Not my mother, not my father, not my brothers. It shouldn't have surprised me. Forgetting me was something my family had become strangely skilled at. It was easier for everyone, I suppose. They were busy being proud of each other. My father was proud of my oldest brother, Adrian, for joining his law firm and carrying the family legacy. He was proud of my other brother, Michael, for becoming a surgeon. Saving lives every day, my mother would say with her hand over her chest, like she was reciting poetry. And of course, they were both proud of Ava, my sister, the creative one, who had just landed a publishing deal for her first book. That left me. No one was quite sure what I did, and truthfully, I stopped trying to explain it. When I said I worked in logistics, my father assumed that meant I drove delivery trucks. When I clarified that I managed distribution systems, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," in the same tone she used for toddlers showing her scribbles. When I tried to talk about optimization models, they responded with, "You always were the complicated one." Eventually, I just stopped talking about work entirely. And that made it easier for them to assume I wasn't doing much at all. The last family gathering I attended before everything changed was a dinner celebrating Adrian's promotion. Everyone was dressed like they'd just stepped out of a magazine. I arrived straight from a warehouse inspection, my work boots dusty, my shirt creased, my hair a little windblown. The moment I walked in, I felt it. The subtle shift, like I'd disrupted the aesthetic. My mother hugged me quickly, her fingertips making the briefest contact with my back before she pulled away to hug Adrian again. My father didn't even look up from his conversation with Michael, and Eva, who used to run to me when we were kids, gave me a polite smile and went back to showing her editor pictures of a cover design. I grabbed a drink and moved to the corner of the room, the place where I usually existed in my family, the edges. While everyone talked about promotions, medical cases, book deals, vacations, someone finally turned to me. Michael asked, "So, still doing the warehouse thing?" I nodded. It was easier than explaining that the warehouse thing was actually a multi-regional distribution network I designed, built, and streamlined myself. Adrian laughed. "Man, you always liked simple jobs. You're lucky. No stress, no responsibility." "Yeah," my father added. "Nothing wrong with staying in your lane." I didn't react. I had learned by then that defending myself only made things worse. It made them feel like I was trying to compete. And in my family, competition was a sin, unless they were the ones winning it. When dinner was served, I sat next to my aunt, who leaned toward me and whispered, "You must be proud of your siblings. Such achievements. And you helped deliver things, right?" I smiled politely. "Something like that." My father stood up to give a toast, and in true fashion, he listed the great accomplishments of each of my siblings. But not once did he mention me. Not my job, not my presence, not my existence. When I realized it, my stomach turned so hard I had to excuse myself. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and stared at my reflection, wondering how a 29-year-old adult could still feel like the forgotten child. On the way out, I heard my parents talking with a couple of guests in the hallway. My mother said, "Oh no, he doesn't do anything impressive. Just some warehouse work. We try not to pressure him." And they laughed. They laughed about me. I left early and no one noticed. That was the night something in me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I realized that my family didn't dislike me. No, it was worse. They didn't see me. And maybe that would have been fine, if not for what happened months later. The phone call came while I was in my office, overseeing the latest expansion of my operations. Things were growing fast, so fast that the board was preparing for acquisition offers. My distribution software had become the backbone for dozens of companies, cutting delivery times by 23% on average. Investors were circling like hawks. But the call had nothing to do with business. It was my cousin Daniel. "Your parents' anniversary is this weekend," he said, sounding exasperated. "They're doing a big party. Apparently your siblings are planning some surprise thing. Your mom wanted me to remind you." "Why didn't she remind me herself?" I asked. There was a pause. She said you were probably busy. Didn't want to bother you." That meant she forgot I existed until someone asked if all her kids would be there. I told him I'd be there, though I regretted it the moment I hung up. The day of the party, I arrived wearing clean jeans and a button-down shirt. Comfortable, presentable. I stepped inside and saw my family in the kitchen prepping champagne. The moment my father saw me, he frowned. "Oh, you came. We didn't know if you'd remember." I didn't know if they would remember, but it didn't matter. My siblings arrived minutes later, laughing loudly, dressed expensively, glowing with pride. My mother kissed Eva on both cheeks, hugged Adrian so tight it looked like she'd never let go, squeezed Michael's hands and told him he worked too hard. And when she reached me, she said, "Hi, dear," barely brushing my arm. They moved back into their world with ease, forgetting I was standing there. I hovered nearby, helping where I could, like a background character waiting for a cue. It happened 30 minutes into the party. 2 older guests approached my parents and praised them for raising such successful children. My father proudly introduced Adrian, the lawyer, Michael, the surgeon, Ava, the author. Then he gestured vaguely in my direction. "And that's our other son. He gets by." The guests gave me the same pitying smile people give stray dogs. I had never felt smaller, never felt more out of place in my own family. I left the kitchen and stood on the back porch, swallowing hard. I don't know how long I stood there before I heard footsteps behind me. It was Ava. "You okay?" she asked quietly. I shrugged. "You know how it is." She looked down. "Yeah, I do." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" She sighed. "They shouldn't dismiss you like that. But you know how Dad is. Everything has to be impressive, something he can brag about." I nodded, but my chest hurt anyway. "Why don't you ever tell them what you actually do?" she asked. I shrugged again. "Because they already decided who I am. Telling them wouldn't change anything." "What is it you do exactly?" she asked suddenly, and that made me smile a little, because even she didn't know. "I run a logistics firm," I said simply. "We design and optimize supply chains." "That sounds big." "It is." "How big?" I considered how to answer that. I could have said it modestly, could have stayed vague, but something in me broke open for the first time in years. So I told her, "My company is being acquired for about $178 million. Eva went silent, completely still. Then she whispered, "Is that a joke?" "No." "How much of that is yours?" "Just under $64 million, after taxes." Her mouth fell open slightly. She looked like she'd forgotten how to breathe. Before she could speak, the back door opened, and all 3 of my siblings stepped outside. "What's going on?" Adrian asked suspiciously. Eva looked at me, wide-eyed, and said, "Tell them." And suddenly all their faces were on me. I swallowed and said as evenly as I could, "My company is being bought out. I'm getting around $64 million. Silence. Not shocked silence, disbelieving silence. Michael blinked. "Since when do you have a company?" Adrian frowned. "You run a logistics firm? You?" Ava elbowed him. I took a breath. "I built it from the ground up. I just never talked about it." Michael shook his head slowly. "Are you serious? 64 million? "Yeah." Adrian laughed once like it was absurd. "You're messing with us." Ava stepped in. "He's not." Michael stared at me. Why didn't you ever tell us? Because none of you ever asked. Eva looked like she might cry. Adrian looked stunned into silence. Michael just kept shaking his head. And that's when the back door opened again, my parents stepping outside. "What are you all doing out here?" my father asked. Eva turned to him, eyes blazing. "Dad, did you know he owns a multi-million-dollar company?" My father frowned. "Who? Adrian?" "No," she snapped. "Him." She pointed at me. My father looked at me with confusion, bordering on irritation. "What company?" "My company," I said. "The one I built. It's being acquired. I'm getting $64 million. My mother laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. My father didn't laugh. He stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then he said the words that pierced deeper than any dismissal ever had. "That's impossible." I nodded slowly. "I know you think so." "No," he said more firmly. "You're not capable of something like that." Michael stepped forward. "Dad." But he held up a hand. "I'm not being rude, I'm being realistic. You've never shown any ambition. You've never talked about doing anything serious. You've never accomplished anything noteworthy." That last part hit me harder than I expected. Eva finally exploded. "Dad, he built a company worth nearly $200 million, and you're still talking to him like he's nothing." My father turned on her. "Don't raise your voice." "No!" she snapped. "You don't get to silence me right now. Not after ignoring him his entire life." My mother looked overwhelmed. "He's never said anything." "Because you never asked," Eva shouted. The tension was suffocating. My father looked at me again, searching my face for something. Proof, maybe, or a sign that this was all a prank. Something he could dismiss. But I didn't break eye contact. After a moment, he said quietly, "Show me." I pulled out my phone, opened the acquisition email, and held it out. He read the numbers. His eyes widened, his face drained, his hands trembled. When he handed the phone back, he didn't speak. My mother stepped forward and touched my arm lightly, as if I were made of glass. Why didn't you tell us, sweetheart?" I took a slow breath. "Because you never saw me as someone worth knowing." Her expression crumpled. My father tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. For the rest of the night, the party continued, but everything felt different. My family hovered around me like I was a rediscovered antique, something they'd thrown in the attic and suddenly realized was valuable. My siblings apologized. My mother cried. My father sat alone in the study for over an hour. Near the end of the night, he approached me quietly. "I owe you more than an apology," he said. "I owe you the truth." I waited. "I didn't push you," he said slowly. "I didn't challenge you. I didn't ask about your career, because I thought you couldn't handle it. I thought if I pushed too hard, you'd break." "I didn't break," I said. "I built something." He nodded, eyes wet. "I know. Now I know." It wasn't perfect. It wasn't magical. It didn't erase years of being overlooked. But it changed something. For the first time in my life, my father looked at me and didn't see the forgotten son. He saw the man I became without him. And for the first time, I felt taller standing beside him,